designed to encourage, empower, and educate real estate professionals by sharing best practices from business leaders that are proven winners. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and this is Calibrate Real Estate. Broadcasting from the Mile High City, thank you for tuning in to the Calibrate Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati, and our special guest today is Carlos German from Florida. Say hi to everybody, Carlos.
Hey, Kyle, what's up? How's it going, my friend?
Oh, man, it's so exciting to talk to you. And as we were preparing for this podcast, we were kind of talking about your start in the real estate industry. We'll get into where you work today, but let's talk about your heritage. You immigrated here to the United States at the age of 15 from Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. So what was it like leaving your homeland and going to this strange country of America? I know we're a bunch of weirdos here.
No.
What was it like?
It's interesting because one of the big things that I listen to a lot of personal development, a lot of audio, a lot of, I'm a very growth-minded kind of person. And you hear Jim Rohn and other, big personal development speakers from past and present talk about how immigrants come here and they're like, oh my gosh, so much opportunity. And locals tend to kind of not see the opportunity because they grew around it. So I came to the United States from the Dominican Republic because I wanted a better education. I wanted a better opportunity for myself. And I had that connection with my family that they could bring me over and ultimately give me that bridge to come over and have that opportunity to benefit from so much more. I came when I was 15 years old, and the one rule I had, Kyle, and this is very interesting, but the one thing I said was, I want to go as long as I get to go to school, because I had cousins and family members that came probably a little bit older than me. They did a GED and then they went to the workforce. They went to build their dreams. I knew there was knowledge that I could get in the US that was going to be very valuable. And it's interesting because one of the biggest things for me was, and I know my English is still horrible, but it was great that I got to learn English, and I didn't know any English at all when I came to this. Nada, not a single, sentence. So being able to learn the language was a huge asset, and ultimately getting into the technology field and all of that was a great asset, and getting more role models of success. In the Dominican Republic, we were a very, very poor family, but my dad, he's always been a hard worker. He moved us as I was super young, probably like 4 or 5 years old, to the middle of nowhere with a vision. Okay. And he said, you see, he got this piece of land, the middle of nowhere. It was nothing, no streets, no phone lines, nothing, right? No cable, nothing. He moved us there and he's like, this is going to be a town. Just wait and see. And we're going to have a big house here, and we're going to, take advantage of opportunities that will be created due to this flourishing town. And I was like, oh man, this is not a good idea, but hey, whatever. I followed his lead, and what choice did I have, right? 4 or 5 years old, whatever. But the funny thing was, he was right, and we were able to capitalize on that opportunity as more people moved to town. He was always a hard worker, so it was a great role model. So then when I moved to the US, I moved in with my aunt and my uncle, who also had their own business and were hardworking individuals, and they were great examples for me. And I've always been a hard worker. I'm always happy to get my hands dirty, go hard at things as long as I'm passionate about it and as long as I'm making an impact. So, that gives you kind of a little bit of in a nutshell, why I came and the background and the benefits that came with it.
So that's amazing. You had both a father that was a visionary, and it sounds like it very entrepreneurial. But growing up, you didn't have a whole lot of resources. I would imagine that things got better and better as that area maybe developed, but at the same time, as you come to America, then you've got your aunt and uncle that are really your host family that help you get acclimated to the area. Now, did you come to Florida right away, or where were they?
No, they were in Maine. So
Wow.
talk about
Culture
it.
shock.
Culture shock. Absolutely. This is very funny because I was the only Hispanic kid in my school, and really the only actual, different color. Like everybody was white. There was no African Americans. I was the only person. And it was definitely culture shock to arrive in that environment. They were amazing. They welcomed me with open arms, and ultimately I'm a very positive guy, so I take the high road. If somebody, there was people making fun of me because I didn't know language and saying words and things like that, that ultimately I didn't understand, or having me say words that perhaps were not the best meaning, but it was all fun and games. And, I enjoyed it. I laughed it off, and, was able to learn and grow and find my niche of people that were kind of, learning and growing and becoming better. One of my best friends, he was running a gas station by the age of like 16, and those were kind of the people I gravitated to. I had another friend that had a web development company, and stuff like that, and that was a great influence.
Well, it's amazing as I think about you moving from your home country, not only to somewhere like Florida, which I think has a little bit more Dominicans living in Florida than in Maine.
Right.
I think about my own experience. I transferred high schools in the same city, 20 miles away from each other, but not very far, at the age of 15. And that was hard enough. I mean, high school, that's a very, formidable period of time. It's an area of great change, a time of great change. And to be literally going through all of those changes as high schoolers can be in a foreign country. And obviously you've got your host family with your aunt and your uncle, but I can imagine that was probably very difficult. And it sounds like you took it in stride, and you learned and you grew. And this podcast is all about education. But what I'm asking as a follow-up question is, what are some lessons you learned from that process of basically leaving and trying to stake out a better life than maybe you had prior to that, and then also focusing on the education, because the education for you sounds like that was really critical and very important to your foundation of how you've been successful as a real estate agent.
Absolutely. The main thing that I can say, like lessons learned or things that happened, through that environment is like what I alluded to earlier. Surrounding yourself with the right people, and making sure you gravitate to like-minded individuals. Getting yourself in environments that uplift you and make you better. And it's funny because looking back, I think that happened by accident. It didn't happen by, I had a lot of options. I went with the ones that I felt were the best. It was kind of an accident. Looking back, now I know that was good. But it's funny because when I started in real estate, I didn't do that. And that was probably one of my biggest mistakes. I didn't surround myself with the right individuals and whatnot. So that's definitely one of the lessons. At the end of the day, it's about hard work, dedication, and hustle. I was able to excel in a school despite the fact that I had to learn the language. I was, graduated with honors, and graduated in the National Honor Society, which was a goal of mine. And in that school, it was kind of hard to get into it. You had to be very balanced. So I had to actually get leadership skills. And, I can spend all day talking about that because it was an interesting thing. How am I going to become the president of something or a leader of something when I don't even know the language yet. And, I just arrived in this place and whatnot. So I just started my own club. I started a Spanish club and became the president of that. And that gave me the leadership skills. I tried out different sports. I've never been athletic. So, I got into the football team because all you had to do was survive. So yeah, a friend of mine told me, yeah, if you survive in football, you'll get in. You don't have to be good, and I can help you survive. So I trained with him all summer, to go to the tryouts. I did weightlifting and all this stuff, and I was able to get through and get my pedigree complete to get that accomplishment. So those are lessons. I mean, it's goal setting and doing the things required to get to that goal, and being consistent.
Well, I mean, there's so much in your answer there. I loved hearing about your willingness to kind of break out of your comfort zone, for lack of a better description. Is just, I mean, literally you're in this spot where you're the only person in your school that looks and talks like you. And that's got to be scary. But at the same time, you're like, how do I fit in? How do I get a group of friends? How do I acclimate? How do I, learn how to be a part of this culture and a part of this community? And I think that's very important for business leaders to hear, is that there's going to be times where you're faced with, I'm trying something new and we're stretching and we're constantly growing. And it's hard. It's painful to leave your comfort zone at times. So I liked hearing about that. I loved hearing about the fact that you're part of the National Honor Society as someone who is foreign. You're looking at a C student in high school. I grew up with the language. I'm a fairly intelligent guy. I just didn't apply myself in high school. I learned how to apply myself in college. It became learning how I could become successful. But that's impressive. I mean, incredibly impressive that obviously you're intelligent, but to be able to do that in a foreign country is really, really cool. And then you didn't stay in America. During our podcast prep, you had mentioned that you moved back and you met your wife, Rosemary, or you rekindled with your wife, Rosemary, if you knew her before. And now you and Rosemary have a child, Hector. But tell me about how you decided to leave the United States, and then when you came back, and kind of what that 18, 19, 20-year-old Carlos was up to.
Yes, yeah. So I was very entrepreneurial, and like and just to backtrack a little bit, because I think this is one of the biggest things that drives my purpose today. And back when I was in Dominica, like I was never a good student, and I was average, but I wasn't really trying hard. And I had a conversation with one guy. It was like a 5-minute conversation. I guess I'm very driven when it comes to goals, and he told me that he had gotten a scholarship for one of the best universities in Dominican Republic, and he went for free. And I was like, whoa, how did that work? What happened there? And he's like, no, yeah, I just did really good in a school. And, yeah, they gave me the scholarship. I was like, wait a second. So you mean that if I do well in a school, I can get a scholarship? Is that how? Nobody had told me that. I was taught hard work and all this stuff, but, there was kind of a missing link, a connection. And I ended up striving. Since that point, I kind of lit up all of a sudden, and I wanted to do better. 17-year-old me, I was surrounded by these guys that were kind of entrepreneurial. So I was like, hey, I better do something. So I actually started a website because, one of my passions was programming and website development. Ever since I was young, even in Dominican Republic, I subscribed to a class to learn how to program in DOS. And, I used to walk like half an hour to go to that class to work on these like computers back in 1997, 1998. And you may think, oh well, Windows 95 was pretty cool, and that was in 95. Well, no, we didn't even know what Windows was back then in Dominican Republic. Like these computers were DOS computers, and we were learning to write scripts and whatnot. So that kind of led to that passion, and surrounding myself with guys that were doing that. And learning to program websites. So from high school, I didn't really know what to do with myself. I knew I wanted to do something with technology and stuff like that. So I kind of took a break, and everybody told me not to do it. Like, don't take a break. Don't go to college. I was like, I think I need to think. I couldn't get around the thought of going to college just for the sake of it. I wanted to know exactly what I wanted to do. And technology to me was like, I don't need to go to college for technology when there's so much available online. Like nobody told me like, hey, you can go to, it's going to make a huge difference or whatever. It was more like, I was trying to think about something else, like I was thinking maybe international business, or because I like business, I have multiple languages, but I took a year break. I went to the Dominican Republic. That's when I started kind of connecting back with Rosemary, because I knew her from a school back in the days that I was in the Dominican Republic. But during that year there, I actually kept fostering my technology hunger. So I went to a technical school, learned, Java programming and, network management and some of that stuff, and kept having fun with that. That to me, that was kind of a fun thing. I didn't know what to do with it at that point.
Well, I find that anybody that I've ever met, like yourself, that met their wife or their spouse, obviously we're both married to wives, but if they meet their husband in high school, if I'm speaking to a female, it's amazing what that relationship is like as you drive through your early 20s together. A lot of people meet nowadays in their 30s or maybe even late 30s, early 40s. And I find that high school sweethearts are people who met, in their late teens. You really rely on each other. It's the best accountability partner I've ever had, marrying my own high school sweetheart, because they build you up when maybe others wouldn't, because they know that you can do it. At the same time, they knock you down a peg or two when you need to have a little bit of humble pie. So I think that I can tell from you speaking about Rosemary that that's a very important relationship. Obviously, 11 years married. Congratulations to you for that. I've got to know, how in the world did you find real estate? From all of this technology and being just immersed in wanting to learn more about American culture, but then also just wanting to learn more yourself. You have this student mindset, this willingness to learn, which I think is very important for entrepreneurs. This idea of testing, of iterating. The word calibrate is all about iteration. And, you have a desired result. Maybe it doesn't go quite that way. You make some adjustments, you calibrate, and then you look for that desired result again and see how that works. And you think about it like a scientist. So how in the world did you find real estate, being in the tech industry? And I know you've got a lot of technological advances on your own website, but how did you get into the world of real estate?
Yes, for me, it was through my aunt and my uncle. Like they loved the opportunity of real estate, and as they became successful, they bought some investment properties, and we went to we came to Orlando for vacation, one time, and they actually bought a small condo. I think it was like $60,000-$70,000 for investment purposes in Orlando. And, that broker kind of was telling them about, oh yeah, real estate is awesome and this and that. I was paying attention. I was like, it seems like an amazing career, and then they bought another investment property from that same broker. I was like, man, so you can get 2 sales from one client? No way. So ultimately, in one of those trips of vacation, it was a Christmas vacation. I actually ended up, instead of enjoying the vacation, going to real estate school in Florida. So I did that. And based on that experience, because again, I was kind of floundering, trying to figure out my path. And I was like, yeah, why not do this? I mean, it was like 1 week to get the class done. And I took the class. I didn't take the exam. So, I actually went back to Maine, and I had taken my class. Now in Florida, you have 2 years to take your exam. So I spent those 2 years. I actually got a job at a technology firm doing network management for small businesses and doing websites and stuff like that. And I spent those 2 years, almost 2 years working with them and moving up the chain and whatnot. And eventually I was like, man, I'm a hustler. I work hard, like I came into this company with no degree, no nothing. And now I'm leading, the group and, the head guy, to install new networks and do these things, but I'm not being compensated to that level. I was like, I could probably do better doing something of my own. I already had that entrepreneurial mindset. So I was like, let me go get my real estate license, and I took my 2-week vacation, flew to Florida and took the real estate exam pretty much cold. I'm a confident guy. So that, that was kind of, sometimes I get in trouble for overconfidence. So I went in and took my real estate test, failed. And still in that 2-week vacation, I bought a ticket. I flew to the Dominican Republic. And I met with Rosemary and I told her, I'm here, but I just came to study, and I'm just going to focus. We're going to study. You're going to help me study and talk about, like you were asking, that relationship, because we were kind of dating at that time, even though it was long distance. And I think this was around 19 years old. Or actually, no, I was 20, because that's when I got my license. I was 20. So I went back, she helped me, and she's been an amazing backbone of every huge leap I've taken. She's been right there, and she helped me study, and then I flew back to Florida, took the class again with more preparation, passed it, and I was like, okay, this is good. A friend of the family connected me to a builder that was looking for somebody to help them, with their model home. And I was like, well, they were gonna pay me $10 an hour to be at the model home, only a few times a week, no benefits, no contract. It was just like, yeah, well, we need you. We'll pay you $10 an hour, for a few 3-4 hours. And that was a crossroad, because do I take the path of safety, or do I go and take the path of being uncertain, but in the field that I'm passionate about, that I feel is going to be my career? So that crossroad was one of the tough decisions that, in life you got to make, and you got to take risks. And I ended up going for the builder. And, it's an interesting thing, because, that only lasted like 2 months. He didn't tell me that's what he had in mind, but it was like, oh no, yeah, it's busy season. So I want to, have somebody there. After I had said yes and canceled the other opportunity and told him, hey, I'm doing something else. He told me it was just a seasonal thing. I was like, oh boy, I better figure this thing out quickly.
Baptism by fire now.
Absolutely. So I was like, hey, I took the plunge. Not that it was any good money anyway, it was experience. He was like, yeah, you'll meet some good buyers. You can keep the buyers that don't buy, any of my new construction, and sell them whatever you want. I was like, okay, sounds like a good opportunity. I didn't really, knowing nothing about real estate and not getting any training, and, not having any guidance, I couldn't take advantage of that opportunity at all. And this was at the end of 2006. And that's kind of when I started my real estate career. So I come to Florida with not knowing nothing about real estate, not knowing anybody. I joined a broker that was just that broker, who was a friend of the family at this point. And, he doesn't have a really good system. He doesn't, operate. He doesn't have an office, nothing. He's just operating out of his house. And I'm one of his agents now. And, he tells me go out and do open houses. And I was like, okay, well, this guy is very successful. So I'm just going to do what he says. I'm going to go do open houses. Now my hustler mentality tells me, okay, if one open house is gonna get me a sale, why not do seven? You know, so I started doing open houses every single week, every day, you know, pretty much. So I did that, and you know, up to this point, I had not figured out the fact that my tech background could be an asset. You know, I just started my business doing open houses. You know, I started selling some properties, but I was kind of a loner. Didn't seek any mentoring, any coaching, any peer group to help me out. And you know, that was one of my biggest probably mistakes, not being surrounded by the right level, you know, of individuals.
So this is amazing. Just my thoughts on it is, you know, you're a kid from a foreign country. You've obviously spent some time in America, you know, through high school, and then you come back, but you fail your real estate license test the first time around after, you know, probably being cold going into it after a period of time from when you actually took your class. Rosemary, she's your secret weapon. She helps you uh, study up for the test and get a better result, which is passing it. But then you go from Maine to Florida now, and you're kind of cold again. You literally are in a different community now, a different climate. And it's 2006. While the real estate market is hot in Florida, you're pretty new, and coming right around the corner is the recession in 2008. So how in the world does someone like yourself, which most people would look at and say there's no chance for this guy to be successful, how do you end up landing on the cover of Realtor Magazine as a 30 under 30? How does that happen? I mean, what did you learn in that 10 years? Because 2014 was the year that you were recognized by Realtor Magazine as a 30 under 30. That's how we became friends. That's how we know each other.
Yeah.
So how does that happen in less than a decade?
Yeah, well, brute force, basically. You know, it's interesting because I went from doing open houses to finally, and granted, you know, the one thing that I'm super blessed and grateful for was having role models who just grind. I mean, they hustle, you know, and I'm not afraid of hard work. So some people are just afraid of, you know, going all out, gangbusters, you know, putting in the work. You know, we're talking about, I remember being up at 4 a.m. in the morning, you know, just in my computer, reading, you know, forums and learning and growing, watching podcasts like this, you know, stuff like that, you know, like learning where, how, you know, how do I make it work? And eventually I made a connection like, wait a second, you know, I know technology. So there's got to be a way to capitalize on that. And I created a website. You know, I built a website, launched it in one community. You know, so I targeted one community, and that's what really made it different. The fact that I wasn't trying to be the king of Orlando real estate or, you know, Kissimmee real estate. You know, I just went to one community and fulfill a need that nobody was fulfilling, which was providing up to the minute information and content and blogging and photos and videos, you know, and stuff like that for that community. It was amazing because I started getting leads from it. I was like, whoa, this works. No way. You know, so I started getting lead generation, and I really didn't have a CRM to put them in. It was just a lead capturing thing. So I went and got me something, you know, to put them in, and then I was answering these emails manually to follow up with them, to keep in touch with them, to send them properties, to do all these things. And one point I was like, this got to be a better way. So that's a big principle that I've learned, you know, from one of my mentors, Jay Kinder. He's always thinking there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And in 2009, I actually sold 29 homes. So that was kind of that, you know, peak. And that was like, '08 was a recession.
Yeah.
And, you know, like '09 was terrible, you know. And, you know, one of the things, like I'm very big with delivering on the promise and, you know, and the future and of my customers and my clients. And, you know, even now as I've grown my team and, you know, I'm mentoring agents and stuff like that, I like to make sure I don't promise something I can't deliver. So I used to tell these people, are you sure you want to buy right now? Because the market is likely to get worse. So, you know, and I mentioned that because I didn't sell 29 houses telling people the market was good and you should buy, or no, it's over or whatever. No, I did that by providing the information and letting people make their own decisions, you know, and say, hey, here's what's it. I don't have a crystal ball. That became my catchphrase. Like, hey, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in a year or 2 years, how long this is. But I do know that you need a property. So, you know, what we can do is look at ways that we can position you better so that if something bad happens, you're not in a bad spot. And, you know, that's kind of how I was able to continue to grow my business throughout that recession.
That's amazing, because you're effectively giving a person the opportunity to not work with you, right? When you say, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you really want to buy this? And you're also protecting yourself a little bit from a disappointed customer experience. And basically
Right.
you're making sure that your customers opt into working with you
Correct.
and accept the risk on themselves, which inherently is what really happens. But for you, it gave you, I would feel, just kind of distilling this down, I would feel that gave you the comfort to know that, okay, they're in, they said that they want to do this. Now I'm going to find the best deal possible for them within the market, and I'm going to work very hard for them. So I think that was a brilliant strategy. And selling 29 homes in 2009, and Florida got hit, probably the worst. Florida and California are some of the worst markets that got hit in the recession. 2009 happened to be my best year in my early years until 2014. And obviously this run up in real estate has been much better. But 2009 was the year I was top producer of a company that I was at previously. And there were guys in their 40s that, you know, were much more experienced than me. And I was just grinding away and hustling. But I love how you learned through technology, there's got to be a better way. And you mentioned Jay Kinder, one of your buddies. You gave me this book, The Miracle Morning, for those of you that are listening. And Hal Elrod wrote The Miracle Morning, but this is the one for real estate agents, which Jay Kinder co-authored. And so you mentioned at the beginning that you didn't find good mentors and you weren't good about surrounding people that are like-minded or that can help you or that have the right mindset. So how did you figure that out? And how does someone who may not have a mentor, how do they figure out how to find the right people? Because I think that's critical. Every single one of us has a mentor. Every single one of us is someone that gave us a shot when we didn't deserve it, but we had to put in the hard work. So how did you make that switch?
Yes, you know, what ended up happening was, you know, I reached this level of success of 29 sales, but I was killing myself because, you know, that's all I knew how to do. I knew how to work hard, you know, so I was killing myself, miserable, you know, and I plateaued. So I went from 29 sales and I did 30 sales. You know, I kind of stayed in that, you know, frame for a few years. And, you know, I was like, okay, I'm killing myself, don't know, you know, what the answer is. So, you know, one day I actually got a video in my email inbox from Jay Kinder. And at this time, you know, he's running a coaching company and he's a fellow 30 under 30. He's partnered with Michael Reese, who is another 30 under 30. And he sent this video out and it resonated with me because it was about, you know, building a business, not a practice. And as agents, we end up kind of in this practice. You know, we build a professional practice, not a business. So I started seeking a little bit of his training and coaching and, you know, stuff like that. I bought, you know, one of their programs. It was a gift that I told my wife to get me for Christmas. You know, it was only $900, but at that point I was like, hey, you know, it's a lot of money. So let me justify it by making it a Christmas gift. And I was able to learn a little bit more about how to the right way to set up this real estate practice into a business. And I then started going to their conferences and whatnot. I was going to sign up for coaching. I was afraid of doing it. Then I took my wife to one of the conferences, and here she comes through again, and she actually forces me to join their coaching program, which was like $1,300 a month. It's like a mortgage payment. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. It was a great thing. You know, I joined that. It helped me put the pieces together to build my business. So I hired an administrative assistant, I hired buyer agents, I started moving myself away from the things that I didn't like doing and doing the things that I loved the most, which is running the business, because I'm more of an entrepreneurial mind. That's been my passion. And I like, the training and impacting people better than actually the selling. I never was a salesperson in my eyes. you know I mean, what salesperson is going to go and tell the customer, you probably shouldn't be buying this right now in this market, right? So I was never a salesperson. So they helped me put those pieces together to build my business. And, I became part of their mastermind group. And that's kind of where I started surrounding myself with very high level individuals, and, learning better strategies. And, to the point where I was able to pretty much step out of the business and not work with buyers, barely work with sellers, but still make an amazing living and be able to do what I do today, which I'm super passionate about. And, it was kind of the melting pot of everything. And still running my real estate team, which almost runs on its own. Don't tell the guys, because but ultimately, it's been a blessing.
Well, that's really cool. And so now, Carlos German, you've got this connection to Mike and Jay, and you work with them with EXP. You were a broker owner, and you decided to join forces, and now your brokerage team, you've become basically from broker owner to team leader at EXP. And so let's talk about that a little bit and why you made that change, because I think for a lot of people, myself included, the assumption is owning your own company is the pinnacle. It's the apex of your career. And so it's very interesting that you learned, maybe that's not the right thing for me, and you made that switch. So I'd love to hear your brief thoughts about that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that sometimes, how much pain have you experienced doing what you feel is the pinnacle, and then you realize, again, there's got to be a better way. So ultimately, for example, the time where I was experiencing that pain in the single agent mode, where I was stuck, repeated itself when I hit, like 130, 140 transactions. And it was kind of a cycle where I felt like, okay, I lose my best people, every few years, because they want to open their own brokerages. You help them get to 30, 40 transactions, and, then you got to do it again, recruit new people again, and start all over again. Then you get calls from brokers that are seeing you do big things, and they want to buy you out. And like, oh, that's what this is all about, my exit strategy, great. And then all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, we want to give you this much, but you got to sign a 5-year agreement that you're going to run the office and keep doing that's not an exit strategy for me. That wasn't what I signed up for when I wanted to be an independent broker. We created a partnership program within our own brokerages that we would partner with agents and help them build their own teams and stuff like that, so that the top agents wouldn't leave. And, unfortunately, that's not enough for them. They want what we have. They want that. So the opportunity wasn't big enough for them. It wasn't big enough for us. It wasn't big enough for anybody. So then come EXP, and I started looking into it. I actually flew to Vegas, met with the CEO, Jason Gessing, met with the CFO, CTO, board of directors, did a lot of due diligence and research. And I felt like, okay, this is a great opportunity. And the main thing was it solved those challenges, for us. But if it solves the challenges and it doesn't fit my purpose, it's not worth it, right? So what it did for me was give me a platform, an opportunity to impact many, many, many more agents and help them grow and become successful. And yeah, you want to have your own brand, your own team, your own, huge organization. Yes, let's do it, and the opportunity is as big for them as it is for me. Where before it was kind of, well, if they want to do that, it doesn't fit within my box. And even if I had a way to fit it, it didn't fit all the cravings that they had. So they would just go and do something else on their own. It is just so much giving, so much impact, so much collaboration. As I told you, I was, chatting with Jay Kinder this morning. I was hanging out with Michael Reese a couple of weeks ago, at some events that we did together. I'm connecting with, Dan Beer, Carl Wiesel, agents that are doing 200 million plus in production, and masterminding with them, learning what's working for them. So I feel great. I can't
That's
complain.
good. Well, and I think that, the last couple of minutes of you describing the perils of being the owner. So, I mean, everybody in real estate is an independent contractor and they operate a business, and it's sometimes the business of one person, or it's an assistant and a couple of buyer's agents. But when you actually open a brokerage and you become the broker in charge, or the CEO, or whatever you want to call it, and you're doing it in a boutique model, you run all of those risks that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to that saying, gosh, I've been doing this for 2 years, and holy cow, there's a checklist of items that I want to be thinking about as well, because how do you exit the business? How do you reward people who have helped your business grow? How do you reward top producers? How do you handle partnerships? I mean, all of these things are benefits, but also trappings of being an owner. And so it's great wisdom. It's great advice. I'd like for a moment for you to talk about masterminding. So you mentioned the word masterminding several times in our interview, and that's something that I've had the experience of doing. But for someone that's never heard of the term mastermind, and there may be a few out there that haven't, what is a mastermind? What do you do, and why does it benefit you?
Well, I mean, the mastermind word has been watered down a lot, and they have to be very careful if they're trying to seek, a mastermind, that they're joining a true mastermind. Here's what makes a mastermind great in a sense. The mastermind that I had the blessings to be part of was market exclusive. Now, I was paying big bucks for that, huge amounts of money monthly to be part of that. But what the advantage was, I could open up my business and, be completely transparent. What I was doing that was working, what I was doing that wasn't working, my challenges, my tribulations. And then the group helps you overcome those challenges, helps you see missed opportunities, helps you implement things better, faster, stronger. So that's really, in the true sense, a mastermind is an environment where you feel comfortable to go bare and show your business with its flaws and with everything that you're trying to improve, and tap onto the resources of all those in the room. And in addition to that, also give, contribute those things that you're working with, that are your most secret, most precious treasures, that you feel like, oh my God, if my competitor down the street knew this, it wouldn't be a good thing. So, you share that openly because it's private, it's exclusive, and that makes an amazing mastermind. And shortcutting the time it takes to reach a milestone. That's what it's all about. And don't be like me. Like I wait until I hit the wall a few times before I seek, being able to see your future. I was a broker since '09. So that top year that I had, I felt, hey, let me go do my own thing. It was a horrible market at that time. So my broker actually ended up going bankrupt. And that's why I decided to go on my own and do my own brokerage. So I did that from '09, until January of this year. And, it has its perils. It's amazing to be in control of everything and stuff like that. But sometimes we got to put that aside and realize what's the best for my family, what's the best for my agents. Am I giving them the best opportunity possible? And, what's the best overall for my future, as well.
That's amazing advice. And I agree with you. Masterminds that term can get watered down a little bit, but I think the key elements there is you've got to have this agreement, whether it's formal or informal, that you're going to have a sharing abundance mindset, that if you don't contribute, if you're just a taker, that's not the point of a mastermind. And it's an opportunity to learn from others who've been there, done that. And that's why I have this podcast. I feel like this is a virtual mastermind for someone that doesn't have the ability to know who Carlos is or have the ability to come to Denver and meet me. So there's so many ways to enrich yourself with education. So the last question that I have for you, Carlos German, is my favorite question. I always hold it for the end. It's this advice you wish you knew when you were 22. And it's the concept is answering this question of, dear younger me, what would I give that younger version of Carlos when he was in his early 20s? Now that you know all that you know, what's the advice you'd give a 22-year-old that's aspiring to be in the real estate industry?
Yes. The advice I would give to myself is, get plugged into the people that you're following sooner, right? So there's people seeing this podcast and they're probably afraid to reach out to you because they think like, oh my God, Kyle will never connect with me, which is unbelievable because you're probably the fastest, easiest person, that they could reach and connect because you're giving with nothing, expecting nothing in return. You're just giving through this podcast because you love it, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people feel afraid, like we're masterminding back and forth. They're like, oh, this guy said something. I wish I knew a little bit more about it. Or, I wish I understood more about it. And they don't reach out because they're afraid. They feel like, they must be very busy. They're selling so many houses. They're doing all these big things. I'm just a new agent or, or I'm just starting or, he said he's selling 150 sales. I'm only doing 30, 40. He didn't have time for me. No, sick. The first few years of my career, I was not a seeker. And that's probably why I was focusing only on hard work and instead of working smarter. Smart is when you start seeking and connecting to those people and you learn those shortcuts that are better for your lifestyle. We talked about relationships and, my wife suffered a lot, back then. Yeah, I mean, we got married in 2007. So she suffered a lot because I was working too much. And I didn't have to. There are ways to leverage yourself that really I work less now, way less, and can pursue other passions than I did when I was selling 30 houses, like way less. So, seeking people who have accomplished that, hey, at least go and read the 4-hour work week, that's a start. But don't be shy to reach out to Kyle. Don't be shy to reach out to myself. We're here in this podcast. We're here doing this because we love to share. We love to give. We have a passion. I have a passion for impact. I just want to give more, do more, help more people be the best that they can be and reach their goals. And I feed off of that. When I'm doing that, I am having fun. That's why I told you I'm having the most fun I've ever had. Because I have all these people all over the country that I get to contribute to their lives and their businesses, and they don't pay me a buck to do it. And it's just amazing. Just like you're contributing all over the world, to people who want to tune into this podcast, and they don't have to sign up for a membership, So how awesome does that feel, right?
Oh, it's incredible. And you're totally right. The people that educate are inherently generous. You want to pass information along. And the reason why I started this particular podcast is I have conversations like this with people like Carlos every couple of weeks. And I've been blessed. I worked really hard for it, but I was blessed. It was a gift from God that I was featured in Realtor Magazine as the class of 2012. And I have leveraged the heck out of that group because I said, okay, I felt like I was the last guy in the door. I felt like I was the last guy in the room. And I'm like, all right, close the door before they find me out, because the people, the company of people that I was being recognized with nationally was incredible. It's just incredible. And at such a young age. So I figured, gosh, how can I leverage this? How can I learn myself? And I'm a constant learner. But then how can I share it in such a way that honors you? It honors me, but everybody else benefits. And so if you're listening to this podcast, you know, and I've said this before, that you can just send me an email at info at calibrate.re.com. Carlos, how do people connect with you? Is there a website or something that if someone has a question for you, how do they connect with you?
I mean, the best way is text messaging for me. So I'll give out my cell phone number. That's 407-744-7190. So that's again 407-744-7190. You shoot me a text, say, hey, Carlos, love the interview with Kyle. Have some questions. When can we connect up? So that's one way. You can add me on Facebook, Carlos German, message me through that. Those are the best and fastest ways. And I love it. I just enjoy it. So all I ask is that if you find it valuable in the relationship, that you actually, go and implement it. But definitely happy to talk to anybody and tell you my experiences from my own filter and, my own background on how, I was able to make it happen.
So this is a challenge to anybody out there listening. If you need advice, and I think all of us have the tendency of, it's so easy to walk down the hall and ask someone in your own brokerage, gosh, I have a question. But here's the thing. What if they're trying to make a market in the exact same community that you are? Wouldn't it be great to talk to Carlos in Florida or myself in Denver, Colorado, a question that you knew, no strings attached. It's just free advice. And so Carlos is very generous in providing his cell phone number. I provided you with an email. We ask if this was a valuable interview that you enjoyed. Please rate it. We'd love if you did that on Apple iTunes. Subscribe, obviously, on either YouTube or Apple iTunes, and share it with a friend. You can just send a text message. I loved this interview, and we'd love to connect with you. So for my guest, Carlos German, my name is Kyle Malnati. This is the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. We're designed to encourage, empower, and educate you, the real estate professional. And as I love to say, I will see you around the neighborhood. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.